we're lucky. We have with us three of the people who made it possible for any of us to know this is happening. Without them, we would look rather like lemmings. Perhaps four.
Yes, four.
Four, okay, good. All right. I'm going to hand you the mic and ask you to start with an introduction of yourself, Andrew, and we'll walk down the line.
Hi, yes, my name's Andrew Dixon. I'm a marine chemist at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography and have been studying the chemistry of CO2 in the oceans now for about 25 years.
I'm Vicki Fabry, and I talked about pteropods in the film. I have worked on pteropods in Antarctica, the subarctic Pacific, and in other regions, and I have always been interested in carbonates, shells, and CO2 chemistry.
My name's Tony Haymet. I'm the director of Scripps Oceanography. I just wanted to take a minute to thank Sven and Barbara. Our institution, through our colleague Charles David Keeling, started measuring CO2 in the atmosphere 52 years ago. You may have heard the Keeling curve. And I think about 22 years ago, Dave started measuring acidity in a kind of continuous way. And for 20 of those years, nobody cared. And thanks to Sven and Barbara, this issue has really ramped up. And also the fact that Andrew and Vicki and Ove have been patiently working on this issue when it wasn't famous. I like to say, and it's a strange reference point, but it's not mentioned in Al Gore's movie. This whole phenomenon is due to the same CO2 that causes the warming effect, but never made it into, shall we say, the big time. And so I can't thank Sven and Barbara enough for what they've done for this issue.
Thanks, Tony. My name's Ove Hoegh-Guldberg. I'm half Danish, but I don't speak any Danish, which is really a tragedy. I'd also like to just say what a wonderful film this is. I've now seen it twice, and it's better on the second viewing, in my opinion. And I think it really does. Scientists are traditionally really poor communicators, and I think Barbara was very kind when she said that there weren't any graphs here, because if a scientist tries to tell stories, they tend to blind you with so much information that the human significance of these changes on planet Earth get lost. And I think what this film has done is it just really sort of grinds at the core of us as people on this planet and the momentous changes that are going on. I actually work on coral reefs, and I've been working on global change really from the point of view of global warming and acidification. And one of the stark realities that happened to me as a person was to contemplate the fact that the Great Barrier Reef, which is this amazing thing that's off the coast of Australia, may disappear in the next 30 years if we continue on the current pathway. That's, 375,000 square kilometres of the most magic ecosystem on the planet gone, and gone for a very long time, as you heard Ken Caldera say. So yes, that's my background. I'm sort of a scientist, but I really admire this type of communication device because it's just so important, really is.
Thank you. I'm glad to meet you finally. I've been hearing of your work for a long time. And I should say who I am. I'm Brad Warren. I'm a longtime fisheries journalist. I have run industry trade rags for 25 years or so. I left that work to focus on this problem when it became clear to me, as it has to everyone here, I think, that we face no greater threat to the future of fisheries in the world. And knowing who I know, the leaders of the industry in the US and in many other parts of the world, it seemed to me, we've got to take this on. So with that, I feel extremely fortunate to be here with the people who make it possible for us to have this conversation at all. And I'm going to start with a question to all of you, but start with Andrew. What kind of reductions in CO2 would be enough to keep the ocean full of things we love?
To imagine that we could keep the CO2 at the level even that we have it today, we would essentially have to stop putting CO2 into the atmosphere. if we keep putting it in, even at a much reduced rate, the atmospheric levels will continue to rise.
And let's keep that walking down.
Brad, as you know, we are still, this is a research field that has just really started, and we're getting more and more information. The polar and subpolar seas have been poorly sampled, but just a week or two ago, there was an article in Science that in the Arctic Ocean, the Canada Basin, they found corrosive water at the surface, right? So though that water would be corrosive and start to make pteropod shells who live there dissolve unless pteropods can evolve some kind of mechanism to prevent dissolution. But the problem is in the high latitudes, those polar seas, they have much longer lifespans, and they may only reproduce once a year or more than that. And so they don't have much time to evolve adaptations to live in water that they have never experienced in their evolutionary history.
Tony.
I think the important thing is we're already in an overshoot situation. So, we can't stop tomorrow. We can't get everyone to agree to stop. And so I think you're asking us what's the safe level. I think 350 parts per million would be safe, which means that we're now at 390. We have to go back down to 350, and nature gave us 280. So that means decades of reducing our emissions and then waiting patiently for the 1,000-year lifetime of CO2 in the atmosphere to slowly go away. I mean, it always could be, we could get lucky. Maybe 400 or some higher number is also safe for the oceans, but I prefer not to rely on luck.
Ove.
Actually, that is well said. I think this is the gamble aspect that is unacceptable. When you take coral reefs and you ask the question, what's safe for corals that build reefs, it's become very evident that we're already in a situation now where the impact of warming and acidification together are causing reefs to decline at basically at about a rate of 1 to 2% per year. Scientists published in Science earlier this year the fact that the corals on the Great Barrier Reef are now growing at 15% slower than they were in 1990, and that's unprecedented in 400 years of record that they looked at. So you've had this marked downturn in this fundamental property of coral reefs. Now the problem with that is that when you look at a reef, about 90% of it is being taken away. So they lay down the calcium carbonate and storms smash it up and it grows back and so on. So we may already be in deficit. So like Tony, I'd say 350 is the only place that's got a good chance of being safe for oceans. And that does mean an intergenerational target in which we say, look, this is the lungs, the heart and lungs of the planet. We cannot fool with it. It is worth foregoing some profit from special interest to get to that long-term target. And as we've heard, there are enormous options out there, and it really only costs a couple of % of GDP to get there. But what's standing in the way at the moment is our business as usual approach to the problem. We've got to get away from politics and business as usual. This is not that situation. This is a life and death issue. We can't go on with the 2%, 2 parts per million being added to the atmosphere per year. This is just lunacy and a highway to hell.